Hello, today we're going to be talking about how to read more, or depending on how you utilize the tips, how to read better. This is not going to be a video focused on reading hacks or like speed reading tips or anything like that. Really, the emphasis is going to be focused on how to increase your love for reading, and then because of that, your desire to read more. There was a part of me that when I looked over my notes and sat down to film this video, I thought, you know, I'm reading less than I have in a really long time, so it seems like a weird time to be doing this, but the truth is I'm reading less because my life has been so busy, and the fact that I'm still reading as much as I am, despite all the outside things that demand my attention right now, is a testament, at least from my perspective, that this truly does increase the desire to be reading. So this can be used for people who are just starting out reading and wanting to develop more of a habit to read. This could be people who are in a reading slump and haven't really had that desire for a while but want to get it back, or this could be for avid readers who are just looking to increase reading more. Probably going to be the most helpful to the first two categories of people, but I mean, you know, stick around, see if you get anything out of it. So I have 5 tips of ways to increase, ideally, your love and engagement with reading, and therefore your desire to read more. The first tip is to cultivate curiosity. What are you interested in? Is there a character archetype that you like? Is there a writing style you love? A setting or a writing device that really grabs you, that you've recently discovered, or that you know that you typically are drawn to? Is there a point in history that fascinates you that you'd like to read more from? Taking a second to reflect on what it is that we're enjoying about our favorite stories lately, or really honing in on a particular curiosity, are ways that really help to excite us about reading. I'll give an example. I was reading The Three-Body Problem, and it starts off with the Chinese Cultural Revolution. That's the setting in the beginning. And it's not even a huge chunk of it's like half the book, actually, if I'm remembering correctly. But I just remember thinking, you know, I want to know a lot more about this time in history. Obviously, I know some of it, but have I done a deep dive? Like, have I really actually engaged with the stories of people who have lived through this? I haven't. I just know about it in like a textbook way. So I ordered Wild Swans, which is a story of 3 generations of women who lived through the Cultural Revolution and escaped China. I think just the granddaughter, who is the writer of this book, and the mother. This book is banned in China, but it was such a fascinating story from before the revolution started, with her grandmother's story and looking at the culture at the time, and then seeing that cultural shift, seeing especially the writer of the book, seeing her get swept away with the promises of Mao, and then the reality of what it actually was as history came to pass. It was fascinating, and me just taking the time to dig into a particular interest of mine at that moment, because this had sparked the interest, so I followed that interest, was great for me. Just the same, Annihilation introduced me to a whole new kind of sci-fi / horror, bio sci-fi, bio horror, invasive plant life, unknown area, cosmic, this thing is bigger than me. I loved it, and I've been pursuing it ever since. I've mostly found more of this type of thing with the same author, but you know, I got somewhere. I could give more examples, but we'll move on. The point is, if there's a particular interest or a particular thing that is making you love a story, pursue that into the next book and the next one and the next one until you're ready to move on to something else. The next tip is to read widely. I think it's really easy to fall in love with a particular genre or be really wowed by a type of story and then just continue to pursue that bent to the point of a reading slump, because we identify with that thing. Like, I am a fantasy reader. This fantasy book sparked my sense of wonder and my excitement for new worlds, and so that's where I go, and now suddenly it's lost its spark. Or I am a romance reader, and this is what I read, this is what I built my identity around, my presence online, if you have like a Goodreads or whatever. And I think it's important for us as readers to remember that we are not required to be loyal to a genre. I love fantasy and read a lot of it, but I am not loyal to the fantasy genre. I read widely. I read a lot of genres, and the times that I find myself falling into a slump are the times that I so hyper focus on a genre for so long that I I need to move on and I don't let myself. I think a lot of times there needs to be a balance between following our curiosity, following our interests, going down that rabbit trail, but also making sure that we're taking a second to evaluate, am I still loving this? Is this still, sparking wonder in me or excitement in me? Or is it time to kind of shift to something totally different and see what that over there has to offer? Tip number 3 is going to be rigorous notes. Bullet points, thematic notes, character actions that move you, annotation. There are people that are going to recoil at the thought because 1, rigorous notes doesn't sound fun to a lot of people, and 2, that's gonna slow me down. Why am I here in a video about reading more if your tips are gonna slow me down? You are right, this will slow your reading down. But remember, the point of this video isn't speed reading hacks, but rather to increase the love of reading and therefore increase the desire for reading. And taking rigorous notes actually doesn't have to be that, or even just leave off rigorous. Taking notes doesn't have to be that time consuming. I have a video on annotation talking about how I engage with books on the page if I actually have the physical book. But this year, all of the 20 days of this year so far? What day is this? 14 days of this year so far, I have started keeping a reading journal, which is outside of annotations, no markings in my books because I primarily read digitally now, but just as I come across a plot point in a book, be it ebook or audiobook, in my external notebook, I just write a little dash and then a quick note of the plot point or of the character beat or of the line that really spoke to me. But the point is to just engage with the story more. Write down the parts of the story that are really standing out to you, moving you, exciting you, making you think. Even if it's just at the end of the day, a couple quick sentences about what the story did or what you read or how you felt. This will help to engage with the story more, really nail down what do I love about the story? What is it that makes this story special or terrible to me? And then that also helps. It helps 1 with loving the story more because you're actually engaging with it more and thinking and taking just a couple of minutes to reflect on it. But also this quick reflection helps to understand your reading taste more so that you know what to pursue next and ideally can continue to pick books that are going to be more likely to be a success. Tip number 4 is find a buddy reader. If you have a friend who is also a reader and who likes reading some of the same books as you or likes reading totally different books than you and you want to swap, then organize reading something close together at the same time. Or if you don't have that, then most booktubers have a Discord server. So pick a booktuber you like, pick someone who seems to have a good vibe, might have a community that has a good vibe too, engage there, develop friends or acquaintances, set up buddy reads. Or a lot of us already have buddy reads kind of built into our Discord server, so you can just join one of those. But the point is, those notes that you've been taking, those reflections that you've been having, share them with someone. Have them share theirs with you. Engage with other people. I guess I can't promise you, but I can tell you for me, the social part of reading, I enjoy just as much as the act of actually reading. That engagement, that discussion, that being able to share my thoughts with someone and then they respond to them and then someone else shares their thoughts and they make me view the story differently and I respond to them, and that conversation that comes with engaging with a story, I look forward to that as much as I look forward to just reading the book. Again, technically this will slow you down. If you engaged with no one and just sped through as many books as possible, you would read more books. But the high that I get from finishing a book and talking about it, full spoilers, with other people that just finished the book too, and really digging into the themes and the characters and what you took away. Why did you hate it? Well, I loved it. Or why did you love it? I hated it. That conversation sometimes sticks with me more than the book itself does. And if I remove the social side of reading completely from my reading life, my reading would easily cut in half, because that's such a huge part of what makes me love reading and want to continue in engaging with the stories. It's the discussions that I have with people as I'm reading through it. Tip number 5 is find a property that you love and check to see if there's a book. At the risk of sounding like a snob, if there is a movie or show that is actually good, it is probably based on a book. That's not always true, but I think you would be shocked at how often it is true. For real, make a list of your top 5 movies and shows and just do a Google. Just check to see if it's even based on it. It doesn't even have to be adapted from, just based on a story, on a book. It likely is. Or even one of my favorite books of the year in 2023 was because I watched a documentary and it was so good and I wanted more. I wanted to know more. So I was like, I bet the heroes of that story wrote books, because they always do. So I looked up the two main divers. They both wrote their own books. I picked the cover that I thought was better. And then I read that book. I read it. My dad read it. We both loved it. Had so many amazing discussions off of it. And it was one of my favorite books of that year. If there's a property that you love, there is likely a book attached. Not definitely, but likely. So if there's a property that you love and you'd love to engage with it more, check out the book. Even if the book is super different, it'll give you the opportunity to engage with the story in a totally different way. And reading that book that I mentioned to you, that I think it was called Aquanaut. I'm gonna have to go back and actually remember the names of the documentary, and I'm pretty sure it was called Aquanaut. That book kicked off me going through a series of reading diving books. I think, yeah, here's one of them, Into the Planet. But this is just one. I've read many. Here's another. Also, if you're interested in diving, you should check out Dive Talks. I've also gone through pirate phases. I've gone through, I'm never not in a pirate phase, actually. I've gone through classic phases. I've gone through trope phases, like enemies to lovers. Oh, I hate that trope. Friends to lovers, or found family, or motley crew, which is kind of the same thing. Finding a thing that you love and then just making that thing your focus for a little while is sometimes my favorite phases of reading. But always with remembering that I still need to not go too deep down that tunnel and still read widely so that I don't burn myself out. Anyway, all of these tips won't work for every person, but hopefully one of these tips is something that you could take away and maybe just increase your love for reading, which will also increase the amount of times that you choose to pick up a book over something else. Let me know if any of these tips are something that you're going to try out, or that you think have worked for you, or if you have a tip that I didn't mention in this video. Please do chat with me more in the comments. I'll see you again soon. Bye.